You're listening to Life Strategies with Monique. Get ready to be empowered and inspired.
Hey there, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Life Strategies with Monique. In this week's episode, I am interviewing Ramonica Gamble. Ramonica is a business professional with over 20 years of hands-on experience in personal and leadership development. She has built her career on training and developing others to climb the corporate ladder. Her business style is real talk with a hands-on approach. She is a graduate of the University of South Alabama with a degree in marketing. She is now the author of a customer service book entitled, Is Bad Customer Service Killing Your Cash Flow? You don't want to miss this week's episode where Ramonica is going to share with you this week on how you as an entrepreneur should be running your business. Stay tuned for an exciting episode. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Life Strategies with Monique. My guest today is an unbelievable woman. Her name is Ramonica Gamble. Ramonica is from Gulfport, Mississippi, and she's been living in Mobile and has been a business professional for the last 20 years in customer service, leadership development, and has built her career by training and developing others. She currently is an entrepreneur who helps women who want to be entrepreneurs themselves, and I'm so excited that she has decided to be in the studio today with me. So, Ramonica, thank you so much for being on the show. Say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone. How are you? Monique, thank you so much for having me and allowing me to pour into your audience. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, I want to go ahead and get started because I'm so amazed at your background because you have over 20 years experience in the industry itself, and you literally left that industry after all that time and decided you were going to leave and become an entrepreneur. And that is not an easy thing to do. And I'm telling you, so many people in this world want to be entrepreneurs, but they are so stuck, wanting to live on their jobs, don't want to let it go, but you stepped out. I mean, you really stepped out, and I mean, you left a good place, and that's what really amazes me about your story, because you left a good place, and that is just not a common thing, and I just want my listeners to hear your story and to hear what it is that you're doing that is impacting so many women. And I mean, listeners out there, I am not kidding you. This woman impacts so many women around the world with what she does and sharing her business of being an entrepreneur, from customer service to being a bold chick, which you're going to hear a little bit about that in just a few minutes. So, Ramonica, just start from the beginning, because I want my listeners to hear the backdrop of how you got started and then ended up leaving that industry and becoming an entrepreneur. So I'm turning it over to you. I mean, I'm so excited.
Wow, what a great introduction. I'm feeling like a rock star right about Monique, let me say this. And even as you were, talking about my bio, it was just like there was some things being downloaded in my spirit about things that I wanted to tell your audience about. And I don't want to forget. So let me just put these little nuggets out there just right out the gate, if I may.
Go right ahead.
So, number one, I really need people to understand that it is a process. And I know we hear process often, but that's really what it is. It is a process to working your way up from ground level at a company. Because when I started working for corporation that I used to work for, it was Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Like everybody starts at the ground level. Even with the college degree, you're going to be out there like washing cars. So it's a very humbling experience, like right out the gate. Okay. And I feel like being an entrepreneur is the exact same way. So while it looks glamorous, being an entrepreneur, because people say this all the time, oh my gosh, you get a chance to work from home and that's so cool and that's so awesome. It is. I'm very thankful for the opportunity of being able to work from home, but also understand in working from home, I am doing just that, working. Much like when I started my corporate job, there was a lot of work as a new person. You got to do the grunt work. You got to go get the coffee. They're going to give you the rough and tough customers. So being an entrepreneur is the exact same way. But the backdrop to the enterprise story was it was ground floor. That song goes, started at the bottom, now I'm here. I started at the bottom and I literally worked my way up through the company. And that was by design. That's how the company was laid out. And I had my share of bumps and bruises along the way. I remember being the only Black person who worked in the office, if you will. And, sometimes when we're on a job, we're looking around for someone who may have blazed the trail already. And in my case, I couldn't find anybody that had already blazed the trail. So me unknowingly being the bold person, I started to become a change agent. And by that, I meant that if I saw someone who came in and they were sharply dressed and, they talked the talk and seemed like they would walk the walk for the company, if that person didn't get hired, I can remember saying, hey, what happened to that person? Did they get hired? And they were like, no. And then, you see someone else come through that looks sharp. I'm like, did they get? No. But I think they got tired of me asking, did that person get hired? And they said, we better do something around here. And so slowly, people who started to look like me showed up. And as I progressed through the company, I was in a position where I was able to hire the best person for the job. And I saw great talent from Mobile come through. And, I was able to hire those people, and hiring the best talent really helped me become a great leader at Enterprise. It allowed me to work with some really cool people. But can I say this? And it's just dropped in my spirit because it totally ties into the boldness that I really embrace now. I don't know if I was calling it bold back then. I was just probably crazy more than anything. We call it boldness now. But one of the things I noticed, and I still see this sometimes with women, there would be some woman who was new with the company. And a lot of times she looked just like me. So she was a brown woman. And I would be there to offer up so much assistance and hold her hand and agree to guide her through the process, much like I did with anyone else. But I remember what it was like starting out, not seeing anyone brown like me. And so I really wanted to be a mentor for others who were coming through. I was often met with the side eye, though. There were people who had some level of hesitation, or they thought that, I was trying to get them to do maybe my job. And it was like, well, no, boo, I know how to do my job really well. I'm here to help and serve you. And oftentimes as women, and I've heard this said about Black female bosses before, that they're out to get you. And so I'm just saying we need to take that away, because not everybody in a workplace is out to get you. But if you're showing up at work trying to do your best and trying to climb the corporate ladder, because let's be real, everybody's not cut out or designed, nor do they want to be an entrepreneur, which means you need to thrive in your 9 to 5. And so if you're trying to thrive in your 9 to 5 and someone like me who's genuine shows up to offer you assistance and you meet me with resistance because you're just afraid that someone's out to get you, you're really positioning yourself to miss out on information. And so I want to challenge your audience to make sure that they stay open to the possibilities, and that if someone is coming alongside of you and they're offering to mentor you, it's because maybe they see something in you that could really help you benefit or glow up down the road. So don't look at it with so much hesitation. And I understand that may be like a cultural thing, but many people have missed out on opportunities because they were hesitant to be a part of a mentoring program. And I see it in the entrepreneur space as well, where someone is really good at their talent. So maybe it's a makeup artist, or maybe it's a cake designer, and they're amazing with what they do, but they don't have the business knowledge. And so what happens is they're baking their cakes and they look great, but they have no concept of, what does the back end of my business look like? How can I scale this? How do I market this? They simply know what they know about their business, about their craft, and then everything else kind of escapes them. And so that's one of the things that I definitely want to caution people about. It's one of those things that could get you caught up in a 9 to 5 as well as in an entrepreneur space.
Wow, that's amazing, because I could see that where people would be very hesitant, because yeah, I see it often when people may think, yeah, they're out to get me. Well, no, they're not out to get you. They just really want to help you or assist you. But it's kind of like having that crabs in the basket mentality, which we just really just need to soul get away from that. But at the same time, realizing that there are genuine people out there, and that's kind of like one of the things that you teach is that, just be open. And that's powerful. People should be open, especially if they want to be that entrepreneur. There are people genuinely out there trying to help. So tell our listeners a little bit about that perfection deal, because a lot of times when we're in business or trying to be in business for ourselves, before we even step out there, we're too busy worried about the perfection, trying to make everything perfect. We need the A, B, C, and the D, all the way. You know what I'm talking about. Talk about that perfection and what people or what individuals who are wanting to be entrepreneurs can do to overcome that.
Okay, so first and foremost, perfection is it's a time snatcher. Because what you say is, well, I can't release my book, or I can't put out the new version of the cupcakes yet, or my new lipstick yet, because I'm working on one more thing. And you literally continue to work on that one more thing for 2 months. And it's really something simple and easy, but what they're essentially doing is they're trying to buy time because they're not confident about what they're trying to release. And so it just sounds a little bit better when I say, I gotta get it just right. I'm a perfectionist. And so people will, because honestly, if you hear someone say, I'm a perfectionist, we almost view that as a good thing. We're like, yeah, they want to make sure it's done right, and they want to dot their I's and cross their T's. Listen, we're not doing income taxes, right? That's where you need to get somebody who is a perfectionist. We're talking about you positioning yourself to get out there, and this is where people get stuck. They don't move quick enough. And because you don't move quick enough, you fall into perfection mode, and you fall into procrastination mode. And ultimately it just boils down to, hey, I'm not real confident around this yet, so I'm just going to buy myself some time. And this is the catchphrase that I'm actually going to use. But I would just encourage them to go ahead and put it out there. Now, I don't mean half step. That's not what I mean. I mean, if it's 99% complete, put it out there. Let's see what happens. And then you can go back and make adjustments to the process. That's how you perfect what you're trying to do. But if you're just sitting in the lab creating all day and no one ever knows about it, no one has an opportunity to give you any feedback on it, like you could be in the lab from now until the cows come home. Literally, because you're trying to get it just right. No one puts anything out that's perfect.
Right.
This doesn't happen. It looks like it was perfect, but we don't know. People beta test stuff. And what I mean by beta test stuff is someone may say, hey, I'm thinking about selling cupcakes. And so the beta test would be, rather than just sit over in my lab and write down 30 different recipes and come up with 100 different flavors we want to remix into the cupcake, the way to put that thing out there is say, hey, you know what? I'm going to get, because your friends and family, they may not buy from you, but boy, they'll tell you the truth. They will tell you if it's a go or not. So what you do in a beta test is you say, hey, let me get 10 people or 5 people that I trust to come over to my home, and I'm going to put in front of them 5 of my favorite cupcake flavors, the ones that I'm most passionate about. And then get them to give you feedback. And they may say, oh, girl, this one's good. Oh, that sweet potato cupcake, girl, that one need a little bit more cinnamon. And have you thought about putting a pecan crust with some cream cheese on the cupcake? And you're like, oh, no, I hadn't thought about that. Well, see, if you're just sitting in the lab thinking and not doing anything because you're trying to make it perfect, you never get an opportunity to get the feedback that could really help you get to the place that you're trying to go. So I encourage people, I've heard it said, like, you need to fail fast. And in order to fail fast, that means that you're willing to put yourself out there, like, it may work, it may not, but you'll know really fast, and then you can make adjustments instead of sitting in the lab.
Yeah. And one of the key things that you just said was that you got to build it by putting it out there. You got to be willing to. And I think that's where a lot of individuals tend not to want to do that, because that word rejection. I don't want to put my stuff out there. I don't want to get rejected. So guess what? I'm just not going to put it out there. So that's another obstacle that I think entrepreneurs are having to overcome, is wanting to put their stuff out there and having to deal with, figuring out if the people are going to be receptive to what they're putting out there, because nobody wants to be rejected. I mean, honestly, nobody does. But that's one of the things you're going to have to do as an entrepreneur. Be willing to put yourself out there, do the beta test, as you've already mentioned, and then find out. But at least you'll find out what's working and what doesn't work. So, talk about a little bit about that rejection, because I know that's something that you hear a lot about with the clients that you work with.
Yes. So let me just say it like this. Hi, my name is Ramonica. I'm the bold chick, and I've experienced rejection before. So I don't really call it like, just saying, like, okay, so real talk. In life, we are going to experience situations. So, rejection is relative. Like, if someone doesn't buy something from me, I don't feel rejected. The way that I'm thinking about it is, hey, Monique, do you want to buy this pen? If you say no, I'm not feeling rejected, because then as I looked right over your shoulder, I saw that you had 2 cases of pens stacked up behind you. So why would you need to buy another pen, right? So I think 2 things really come about as we talk about rejection. Number one, it is going to happen. So please get your mind right, because that's another part about being an entrepreneur. You have to have a bold mindset, a courageous mindset, a confident mindset. And that doesn't mean that you don't get down on your luck sometimes. That totally happens. That's a life moment. You got to bounce back, because you got to look at the big picture about why you're doing what you're doing. So when I work with clients in a course, one of the first things that we work on is mindset, because I know rejection is going to happen. And depending on who you are and what your life experiences were, because you may have had a life full of rejection. And if you've had a life full of rejection, for some people, one more is going to push you over the edge. So when I'm working with you, that's one of the first things we need to talk about. Guys, it's just going to happen. The other thing is, sometimes people set themselves up for rejection. So now I'm going to put a spin on it. So I see this on social media all the time. I have seen this post so many times. I wish I had like just $10 for every time I saw it. I could take us to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse for dinner tonight. I've seen it said where people are like, well, y'all support this celebrity or that celebrity, but you won't share my post, and my family and my friends, they won't buy from me. If you don't know who your target market is, you will be expecting people to buy from you that have no need for your service. It's like expecting a first grader to purchase a car. So it'd be like Nissan coming on saying, well, these kids are sitting in front of the TV while their parents are warming up their food, but they're not buying our cars. Yeah, you're right. They're not buying the cars because you're not their target. So a lot of entrepreneurs, let's go back again, they know how to do what they know how to do. So they've honed their craft. But what's missing is the business sense and the business knowledge. And because they're so passionate about their cake business, they feel like everybody else should. Well, guess what? That's not the case. You know, maybe you're putting fondant on your cakes, and I like buttercream, so I'm probably never going to buy that cake. I'm not your target. And a lot of entrepreneurs don't know who their target is one of the first things I ask before I start working with someone is, hey, do you know who your target market is? And they're like, everybody. And I'm like, no, everybody's not your target. Everybody can buy from you. Anybody who shows up with money can buy from you. But when you created your product or your service, most of the time when I started talking to them, it was created with someone in mind. When Gerber came up with the baby food, they were not thinking about that baby food for adults. They were thinking about it for babies. Okay. So same thing. When Apple came out with their phones, they weren't thinking about 2-year-olds getting the phones. That product was geared towards teens and tweens and adults. So we need to think about who is the product for and who is it designed to serve. And until you get really clear on that, you are going to think that your family and your friends are rejecting you. They're not rejecting you. They just don't need it. My mom is not buying my coaching package. My mom is almost 70. She's not trying to be an entrepreneur. So it just wouldn't be right for me to post on my social media feed, my mama don't support my business. She does. She supports me, but she's not buying from me because she doesn't need it. And it wasn't designed for her.
And I think that that's a very important strategy and tool that new entrepreneurs definitely need to know, because a lot of entrepreneurs, like you said, would just go out there and they'll start their business. They know their craft. They know the craft, but the business side is missing. So with that in mind, what is it that a new entrepreneur who doesn't have that, who only has their craft, what is it that they need to do to get to the business side of it? What is it that they need to do to get there so that they can mesh the two together and close the gap during their entrepreneurial journey?
Well, first they should call me.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now that we got your part, did I get y'all's attention? Now that I've gotten your attention, let me tell you what you have to do, good people. You need a business plan. Mm-hmm. People skip that. Again, I get it. You're an entrepreneur. You got this product. You're excited about it. And you're just ready to tell the whole entire world about it. I'm with you. Promote your business. Do you? However, you know how I just mentioned that you need to know who your target market is? You also need to know, well, where does my target market hang out? Because you got to market to people. Sometimes people just open their business. This is true story. Have a friend recently opened a brick and mortar location. I won't say what type. We were just talking. She wasn't my client. And so I said, so how are you marketing this? And she literally said, well, I have a sign up. People should see it. And honestly, she was dead serious. And I believe that is the sentiment of most people. Mm-hmm. I have a business. I told my friends, I told my family, or my church members know that I started a business, so they should be buying from me. People don't, there's so much competition in every arena, in every zone, and whatever you can think of, there's some competition. And so you can't just hope and cross your fingers that people will just like show up to you without you putting out some type of, you got to send out a signal. I don't care if your signal is by video or if you're sending out podcast signals or you're writing blogs, but you've got to do something to get people's attention. And so a business plan is a part of the process, and a lot of people skip it. They find it very intimidating.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
A lot of times they think that it's supposed to be this 20-page, 30-page document, and probably if you're going to the bank for financing, which unfortunately for most people who are in startup mode, getting bank financing may be a little bit of a challenge. I'm not saying it's the impossible, but a lot of times, you really have to have your stuff together to, get to that. A lot of people I know who are doing business in the online space, you don't necessarily require a lot of money to start your business online or to podcast or to be a blogger or a famous person on YouTube. And I encourage people to do that. It's a way to enter the market at a very low price, but you need to know who you're trying to serve, where they're going to be, how much is it going to cost you to run your business? What are your projected revenues? What is your mission statement? What products are you going to offer? How much revenue do you want to recognize in the first quarter versus the second quarter? And these are just basic things that people who aren't business majors or who haven't worked in that type of industry where that was expected of them, they just wouldn't know it. So don't beat yourself up because you don't know it. I want to encourage you to seek out a business coach, whether it's myself or someone else, who can guide you through the process and give you the help that you need. And to be honest with you, I still say it's easy. I've done business plan challenges before in my Facebook community, and I've literally had people get their business plan completed in a week, like taking little baby steps each evening to really get stuff done. And by the end of the week, their plan is done. It does not have to be this 40-page plan. What we're looking for is a roadmap and a guide so that you know how to get from point A to point B in your business with very few gaps in between.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, Ramonica, you, as I've said, you've left the corporate and you've gone over to the world of being an entrepreneur. So, share with our audience a little bit about Ramonica Gamble Consulting, because you have your own business. You're an entrepreneur, very successful entrepreneur. I must say, very, very successful. I mean, listeners out there, if you don't know Ramonica Gamble, you need to check out Ramonica Gamble, because when it comes to being in business for yourself, she is your go-to chick. Seriously, she is the go-to chick. So talk a little bit about that so our listeners will know who you are.
Great. So we talked about the corporate job, and I'll say this, working in a corporate job where I actually had a lot of autonomy. I worked with an RVP who really trusted me. He listened to me and he allowed me to be creative, which is really something you don't find in a corporate space. It's usually like, hey, let's just follow the black and white and we don't want to hear about your gray ideas. But this guy let me really dig in on my gray ideas, and it really started a couple of years before I left the company. I started doing workshops for women or workshops for minorities, or I was able to I saw that there was some gaps on employee engagement between the employees and the upper level management team. And I said, hey, we need to do something. And I coined it the tour of love. And literally we went out to the field and we interacted with, you know, the managers and their employees. And we had some recap dinners and all different types of events planned. And so it went over well. And so I actually had started working with a coach before. I didn't know that I was leaving the company in 2016. I didn't know I was leaving the company. I think around 2015, though, I hired a coach. And one of the things she advised me to do, and it was a personal branding coach, she advised me to start tracking my workplace stories. And she advised me to also start volunteering and asking to take on some different initiatives so that I would have case studies of my work and I would be able to track my successes. And so that helps for those of you who are still in a 9-to-5, do that, track that, keep up with what you're doing, take on extra things that are going to help move your company forward, because guess who gets the credit? You do. You get the credit for it. And it also makes you a standout because you're willing to do things that other people aren't doing. So let me fast track this story because my story runs deep and wide. Around 2015, early 2015, my favorite RVP left the company. This was the person who believed in me, who allowed me to express my creativity in a corporate setting to help move the company forward. These were initiatives to help move the company forward. I was like, oh gosh, you know, when you see someone who makes $1 million a year out of Pensacola, Florida, leave the company, you know, like the tide is changing, right? You're like, oh boy, what's going on? New person came in. It's like, this new person doesn't like me. They don't like that I'm creative. And they didn't like the fact that people saw me as the go-to person. I wasn't trying to step on anybody else's toes, but when you're strong and you're genuine, people are usually like attracted to you. And so I don't think that this person really liked that. And so the first couple of months were a little difficult for me. So you take someone who had gotten nothing but glowing reviews, who was the queen of customer service even back then, to now, like, my world is kind of upside down because I get a review in one area, customer service, require improvement. Excuse me, what? I was off 1 point. And so this person literally said, hey, you know how they say throw the whole cake away? We're going to throw the whole cake away on 1 point.
Oh, wow.
Are you kidding me? So I felt like there was some writing on the wall. And I knew earlier in 2015 or 2016, I had written myself a note saying that I bought myself an expensive gift, but I wrote a note to myself, and it was almost just prophecy at that moment, saying that, you know, I deserved this. It was a gift to myself, that I was going to see some amazing things. I'd see the world, just things would be different. And sure enough, they were. I knew at some point whenever I left the company, I wanted to do my own business. I just didn't know what it was. And so it was time for my annual review. And it was, hey, we still don't like the way some things are. And it was like nitpicky stuff, you know? And so I said, you know what? I think today's going to be the day. Like, I think I'm going to leave. What? Wait, you know? Yes.
Wow.
I don't want to live my life like this. You know, I'd done 20 years. It was good. I had prepared for this day, and I'll speak to your audience about that. When I say I prepared for it, I meant while my coworkers were out upgrading their homes and buying new boats and cars and all kinds of fancy stuff, my dad gave me a piece of advice that I'll share with the listeners, which was, just because you make more doesn't mean you need to spend more. Now, I like nice things. I love to shop, all of that, but I usually don't pay full price for anything. So I was really good at saving money and putting a stash to the side, because my dad said there's nothing worse than going to a job that you know you really hate, but you have to go because you have bills. And I tried really hard to not be that person. And so when it got to the point where it was like, you know what, I've invested a lot of time and energy, and what I'm not going to do is show up and have someone mistreat me. And I just didn't want to go to work and like bump heads with someone, you know, all the time anymore. Like, that wasn't important to me. And so I was out just like that, literally in the blink of an eye. I was like, today's my last day. And I was like, oh gosh, I just did that. And I drove back from Pensacola. I told all my employees. Some of them were crying. When I got back to my office in Mobile, there were people sitting in my office like, are you kidding? And I'm like, no, this is really happening. Like, I'm done. And I saw those people a week later, and they're like, oh my gosh, we've never seen you look happier. And I thought I always looked happy. And they said, you were, until we saw this. And now it's like every day feels like I don't wear that same weight on my shoulder anymore. So I had to transition. It was just time. And I'll be honest, because someone may say, wait a minute, you walked away from a 6-figure job. I did. It was time to go. Mm-hmm. So sometimes the door is just going to close. Okay. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you're instructed. I had total peace about closing that door. Because I did. I totally could have stuck around to see what was going to happen, or continue to go to work and fight with this man every day. But I'd worked there for 20 years. It's like, how much more? Sometimes when there's a cultural shift and you don't want to be a part of that shift, you got options. Options are stay and like keep fighting with it. Or when you have options, you say, you know what, I'm out. Mm-hmm. So quitting, it's I took my ball. My ball was my talents. I took my talents and I said, see you later. And I can tell you, months after I was gone, there were people still calling me from other companies saying, we got a problem at this store. I'm like, hey, I don't work there no more. You know, so that meant that the new people hadn't gone in and built relationships and things like that. And those employees continued to call. And I really did, I still do, mentor some of those people, because I want to see them win. I want to see them, you know, really do well. But it was a very high stress environment. So you understand there's no such thing as easy money. If you're making 6 figures, or you know someone that's making 6 figures, understand they're working really hard for it. You know, doctors, they make 6 figures. They do surgery. They're working really hard for it. School administrators, principals, superintendents, they're working really hard for that money. So there's no such thing as this easy money. You just literally decide where you want to spend your time and how you want to earn this money. And maybe you don't want to everybody doesn't want to earn six figures. There are people who only need $40,000 to live. They may have zero debt. And so $40,000 is a lot of money for them. So it's all relative. It just depends on what's going on. But I made a shift. When I walked out, I was like, phew, I'm done. I'm going to travel. I didn't know to where or what. I just started doing that. You know, I thought I would travel for a long time before I started, you know, working. But so I left in April, and I don't know how I feel about this, but mid-May, I already had my hands in something. Like, I was bored. I was bored. It didn't take long, but you know, I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I knew when I left enterprise, I had to start my own business. Because again, I had autonomy. I had freedom to create, to do, to manage, to lead, to guide my team to success. And so the thought of someone putting me in a box and saying, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that, that would totally disrupt my flow. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't going to sign up for it. It's like, hey, we're going to take a stab at this. And I was like, all right, I'm going to be a coach. Yes, I'm going to coach. And I was like, well, what do I want to coach on? And this is another thing where people get so lost in the sauce. They're not sure how or where to narrow down their focus. And so they're like, well, and I used to see this. I remember, I'll never forget this in a marketing class. We had a local business as a case study. I'm not kidding. It was like a pawn shop. They sold ribs. They were like a bail bondsman. They were a notary. They baked cakes. You get where I'm going? They did everything, right? Because they felt like, well, hey, we can. And I get the entrepreneur hustle. You got these skills and these talents, and you want to put those things out there. But I'm also a fan of being known for something. And so what is it, listeners? If you're thinking about an entrepreneur journey, what is it that you want to be known for? So when I'm working with clients, I help them narrow it down. And oftentimes they feel like, well, you're trying to strip away some of my genius and my flow and what I do. And I've felt like that personally before when I heard people say, well, you can't chase two rabbits. I'm like, whatever, I'm fast. You know, like I'll work on chasing this rabbit on Tuesday. I'm going to chase that rabbit on Wednesday. You know? But what it means is, you know, if you don't have a capacity or a mindset to really handle a whole bunch of stuff, if you get overwhelmed easily, then yes, you definitely need to pick one lane and you need to get good in that lane. And so people started to know me as the queen of customer service. Now, I'm going to tell you guys, I made a lot of errors during my first year, which is why I am like the perfect person to help new entrepreneurs. Now, I'm really passionate about helping them because I know the mistakes that I made. And, you know, I have a marketing degree and I worked in corporate for 20 years, really hands-on. We were the accounting department, the sales department, the leadership, the customer service, you name it. We literally did it all from start to finish, had to review the income and expense reports, everything, you name it. So I'm like, well, I know business. Let me just tell you. What I didn't know was where was my audience? So here I am on Facebook talking about customer service, right? Well, what people would say is, oh yeah, you need to go see such and such because she waited on me at this restaurant and her service was terrible. Now I was like, I cannot monetize this. I cannot make any money on this. Who would pay me for this? And I always knew I should have been on LinkedIn. But I had grown accustomed to being on Periscope, which is where I launched my very first product. It was on Periscope, which for those of you listeners who may not even know what Periscope is, because they barely are live right now, I'm just saying, they were the first live stream platform. And actually, they are backed by Twitter, if you will. So it's Twitter's live stream, but they were live streaming before Facebook. So I launched there. And because I had launched there, it just seemed like the place that I'd grown comfortable. So I just continued to talk about it, even though people weren't buying that. And then I was like, well, I'm going to try and do something a little different. And I was like, I'm going to do lane changer, stay in your lane program. And I did that. And then it was, I'm going to do a fear to fire program. I'm going to teach people how to launch their product or their service in an online space. And then I got some traction behind it. And in 2017, going into 2017, I had like a full curriculum of courses that I was going to, that I offered, that year. So that's where I started. I literally believe that every listener was created to do something great. Now, you may not, decide to be a full-time entrepreneur, but if you think about our kinfolks, they were always doing something of an entrepreneur spirit. Didn't matter if they were maybe cleaning someone's home, which I don't frown on that. I will pay somebody to come and clean mine. So they were cleaning, they were canning, they were taking care of children. Now these poor grandmas, they just babysit for free. I'm like, dang, but so there's something inside of us that we can all do to generate some additional revenue, whether it be Christmas money or vacation money or whatever the case may be. So I want to encourage you all to think about the things that you do really well. And sometimes it's something we do so well that we're like, don't nobody care about that but me. But see, you're the only person that knows how to do it just like you. And the people in your circle may not know how to do it, and they may want to do it. And so now you actually have a product that you could put out on the market. And I want you to think really big. I want you to think outside of your circle. It could be something that someone in Canada, because I had a Canadian client, someone in Canada, may buy it, or someone in the UK may buy it. You just never know. And you won't know until you become bold and courageous and open up your mind and consider, what are the possibilities? What are the possibilities? And that's what I want to ask you listeners to really think about. How can I be bold around things that I'm really bold at? When I say I'm the bold chick, I am the bold chick, but you can be a bold chick, okay? Or bold gent. Whatever it is, you can be that. But you got to be willing to throw perfection and procrastination and fear out the window. And the best way to do that is to really get in a community, get around some people that can support you. And yes, it may require an investment at some level, but that's just how it works. Anything that we've ever gotten, for the most part in life, we had to put some financial or some type of sweat equity, and sometimes both, into the pot for it to work.
Mm. Wow, Ramonica, I mean, you are like literally giving our listeners so much information, and I hope they're writing some of this stuff down. If not, they need to rewind and write it down, because you have given them so much information that if they are a new entrepreneur and they're looking for a way to get their business started, you've given them some major tools, tips, and strategies to get started. But also, you've told them a little bit about who you are and what you do, but tell them how they can get in touch with you if they want some support in becoming an entrepreneur.
Awesome. So I am the queen of bold.com, thequeenofbold.com. But I'm also on every social media platform that you can think of.